My nephew posted a TikTok live from inside my house, announcing he was taking it over. I was watching from the driveway. I'm 63 years old. I've lived in the same house in Papakura for 22 years. Paid it off 11 years ago. Raised 2 kids here. Buried a marriage here. Repainted the weatherboards twice with my own hands. This house is mine in every way. A thing can belong to a person. So when my nephew, my sister, Glennis's youngest, 26 years old, never held a job longer than 4 months, announced to his TikTok followers that the house was basically his now, I want you to understand the specific quality of disbelief I felt. Not angry. Not yet. Just that cold, still feeling you get when something so absurd happens that your brain needs a moment to confirm it's real. Let me back up. His name is Shane. I'll use his actual name because, frankly, it's earned. Shane moved in with me 7 months ago when Glennis rang me in tears, saying he'd been asked to leave his flat in Manurea. His flatmates had kicked him out. He'd stopped paying his share of the rent 3 months prior and had been covering it with excuses he was between jobs. His car needed fixing. He had a mate who owed him money. The usual. Glennis is my younger sister, and she's always had a soft spot for that boy that I've never fully understood. But she's family. So, when she asked if he could stay with me just for a bit, just while he gets sorted, I said yes. I want to be clear about what gets sorted looked like in practice. Shane moved in with 2 duffel bags, a gaming chair, and approximately 0 intention of looking for work. He slept until noon most days. He ate my food. He used my Wi-Fi to stream things until 3 in the morning. He had friends over without asking. He was, in short, a house guest who had mistaken hospitality for entitlement. I'm not a hard man. I didn't charge him rent for the first 2 months. I figured he needed time to find his feet. And I was working full-time at the hardware store assistant manager. Been there 14 years, so I wasn't home much during the day. Out of sight, out of mind. I gave him space. That was, looking back, a mistake. Month 3, I sat him down. Shane, mate, you need to contribute something. Either find a job or start paying me $150 a week. That's nothing. Barely covers groceries. He said yes, absolutely, he understood. He'd been thinking about applying somewhere. Nothing happened. Month 4, same conversation. Month 5, I told him if he hadn't found work by the end of the month, I'd need him to move on. He nodded. Glennis rang me the next day saying I was being unfair, that he was struggling with his mental health, that I needed to have more patience. I told Glennis I'd had 5 months of patience and would appreciate it if she didn't undermine me in my own house. That conversation with Glennis is probably where things started turning. Because after that, Shane stopped pretending to be trying. He got comfortable, started referring to the spare room as his room to his friends, started moving things around in the kitchen, rearranged the lounge furniture one Thursday while I was at work, and when I said I'd like it put back, he said, and I remember this clearly, I just think this flows better, Uncle Barry. Uncle Barry, I've worked since I was 15. I own this house outright. I am 63 years old with bad knees and a good savings account, and 0 tolerance for a 26-year-old rearranging my furniture and telling me about flow. I told him to put it back. He did, eventually, with the energy of someone performing great suffering. The TikTok thing started about a month before the eviction. I didn't even know he had a significant following. Turns out he'd been building some kind of lifestyle account. I don't fully understand TikTok. I'll be honest, my daughter Kezia set mine up for me once, and I've barely touched it. And he had around 8,000 followers watching him make videos about living your best life and not conforming to the 9-to-5 grind. There was a video of him cooking in my kitchen that had 60,000 views. My kitchen, my bench, my Le Creuset pot that his hands had touched without permission. He'd never once mentioned this to me. The day everything happened, I was doing a Saturday morning shift at the store. We had a stock take running, so I was in early, phones on silent. Finished around 11:30, got in the car, checked my phone on the way out of the car park, 23 missed calls. Texts from my daughter Kezia, from my son Hamish, from 3 people I went to school with, from a woman I used to work with in the 90s who I haven't spoken to in at least 8 years. All variations of the same message. Barry, are you okay? Barry, have you seen what Shane's doing? Mate, your nephew is on TikTok right now. I pulled up TikTok. Found his account, which wasn't hard because Kezia had sent me the link. He was live, sitting in my lounge, my couch, my television behind him talking to what the screen told me was 9,000 and something viewers. Yeah. So basically, I've been living here for 7 months, he was saying. 7 months. And my uncle, right, he's suddenly trying to kick me out because I won't pay him rent. In his own house. Like, bro, I've got rights. I've established residency. You can't just turf someone out after 7 months. Comments were flying. Tenants have rights, bro. He can't legally evict you without notice. Stay strong, King. So what I'm going to do, Shane continued. I've done my research. Yeah, 7 months of continuous residence. I've received mail here. I've got my stuff here that establishes tenancy. He can't just tell me to leave. And I've changed the lock on my bedroom door, so he can't access my room. He tries anything. I'll just call the Tenancy Tribunal, change the lock on the bedroom door. The bedroom in my house. He'd changed the lock on a door in my house without asking. I sat in that car park for about 30 seconds just breathing. Then I drove home. I did not speed. I'm 63. I've got no points on my license, and I wasn't about to lose that over Shane. But I drove with a very clear sense of purpose. I rang Kezia on the way. She'd already seen the whole thing. She's a paralegal. Works in Auckland. Sharp as anything. She'd already been on the Tenancy Services website. Dad, she said. He's wrong about basically everything. He's not a tenant. There's no tenancy agreement. He's a guest. The stuff about establishing residency doesn't work the way he thinks it does. I know. Do you want me to come down? Not yet. Let me handle this first. He's still live. 9,000 people watching. I know. He's telling them you financially exploited him. I didn't say anything to that. The financial exploitation of a man who had lived in my house for 7 months without paying a cent and eaten roughly $400 worth of my groceries was apparently a new concept I needed to absorb. I pulled into my driveway. His beat-up Corolla was in my carport, another arrangement that had started temporary and calcified. I sat in the car for a moment and watched the TikTok live on my phone. He still hadn't noticed I was home. I'm not going anywhere, he was saying. This is my home now too. 7 months, yeah? 7 months of making this place feel like a home. I cook here, I clean here. He did not clean. I want that on the record. And now he wants to kick me out with nowhere to go. And his daughter, right. His daughter rang me this morning trying to threaten me, telling me to get out. Kezia had rung him. She hadn't mentioned that, but here's the thing. I know my rights. I've done the research, and I've got 9,000 people watching me right now who know my rights too. I got out of the car, walked to the front door, unlocked it with my key, walked in. He saw me. The energy in the room shifted immediately. To his credit, or maybe it was just shock, he didn't stop the live. There he is, he said to the camera. Everyone, this is my Uncle Barry. Uncle Barry, say hi to 9,000 people. I didn't say hi to 9,000 people. I stood there and looked at him sitting on my couch, in my house, holding my house hostage in front of an audience, and I felt something settle in my chest that was the opposite of panic. It was clarity. You changed the lock on the bedroom door, I said. For my privacy? Yeah. In my house. I live here. You're a guest who's been here 7 months without paying rent, and you changed a lock on a door in my house without asking me. I kept my voice level. Kezia always says I have a very calm voice when I'm furious. She says it's unsettling. That's property damage. Someone in the comments typed, "Get him Uncle Barry," and I noticed Shane glance at it and look briefly uncertain. "I've got tenancy rights," he said again. Less confidently this time. "No, you don't. You're not a tenant. There's no tenancy agreement. You pay no rent. You're a guest, Shane, and I'm asking you to leave. You can't just—" "I absolutely can. And I'd like you out by the end of the day. Whatever you can't take today, I'll hold for a week, and then you arrange pickup." His face did something complicated. I think he'd expected a fight. A real one. Raised voices, ultimatums. Something he could perform for his audience. What he got instead was a 63-year-old man standing in his own lounge being entirely calm and entirely sure. "I'm calling the Tenancy Tribunal," he said. "You're welcome to. They'll tell you the same thing. I'm not leaving. Then I'll ring the police and ask them to remove you for trespassing." He laughed, but it was thin. "That's not how it works. Let's find out." I walked into the kitchen and rang the non-emergency police line. Explained the situation. They were straightforward. They said a guest without a tenancy agreement has no legal right to remain if the homeowner asks them to leave, and if he refused to go, they could assist. They'd send someone out. I walked back to the lounge. Shane was still live. The viewer count had gone up. 11,000. "Police are coming," I said. Something shifted on his face. "You're calling the cops on your own family. You changed the lock on a door in my house, and you're telling 11,000 people on TikTok that you have more right to be here than I do." "Yes, Shane. I'm calling the police." He looked at his phone. At the comments. "Bro, the uncle is right. He doesn't have tenancy rights, lol. You should have just paid rent, mate." He turned the camera back to me. "Tell them. Tell everyone watching why you're doing this. Tell them what kind of person kicks out family." "You're not being kicked out," I said. "You were never supposed to be here permanently. You know that. Glennis knows that. You came here because you needed help and I gave it. And instead of sorting yourself out, you decided to stay indefinitely, and now you're telling people I'm exploiting you." I could see him recalibrating. I think he'd expected me to be embarrassed by the audience, that I'd soften up, back down, not want the drama. He'd miscalculated badly. 2 officers arrived about 20 minutes later. A young woman and an older man, who looked like he'd been doing this long enough to find nothing surprising. I met them at the door. Showed them the title deed. I'd pulled it out of my files, just the first page, my name, my address, paid in full, and explained the situation. They went inside. I followed. Shane was still live. 14,000 viewers now. The older officer looked at him. "Are you the homeowner's nephew?" "Yeah." "And are you on any tenancy agreement for this property?" Pause. "Not formally. But I've been here 7 months, and that establishes—" "It doesn't establish a tenancy without an agreement," the officer said. "Not unkindly, just factually. Have you been paying rent to the homeowner?" "We had an arrangement. Were you paying rent?" "Yes or no?" Shane looked at the camera. 14,000 people waiting. "No," he said. The officer nodded. "Then you're a guest. The homeowner has the right to ask you to leave, and if you refuse, you're trespassing. Do you understand? This is my home. It's not. It's his home. You've been staying here as a guest." Shane's mum, Glennis, apparently found out he was live because she rang him right then. He answered it on speaker, still filming. She started yelling at me through the phone. I could hear her calling me heartless, saying the family would never forgive me for this, saying Shane had nowhere to go. I didn't say anything. I just let the officers handle it. The younger officer, very patiently, explained to the phone that a homeowner has the right to ask a non-tenant guest to vacate, that there was nothing unlawful happening, and that if Shane refused to leave, he would be removed for trespassing. Glennis hung up. Shane sat there for a moment. Then, slowly, he turned the camera toward himself. "All right," he said to his audience. "I'm going to have to pack." He packed for 2 hours. I sat in the kitchen with a cup of tea and let him do it. The officers waited in the lounge to make sure nothing of mine walked out in his bags. He took his gaming chair, his clothes, his console. He tried to take the smart TV from the spare room. "I bought that," he said, and I showed him the receipt on my phone from 3 years ago. He'd been using my television. He put it back. He tried to take the duvet off the spare bed. I let him have that one. It was old. When he was done, he came to the kitchen doorway, his 3 bags, and his gaming chair by the front door. "You know Mum's never going to forgive you," he said. "I know," I said. "The whole family's going to hear about this. Probably. I've got nowhere to go." I looked at him. 26 years old, standing in my kitchen doorway, having just tried to declare squatters' rights over my house on TikTok in front of 15,000 people. There was a part of me, the part that had known him since he was a toddler. The part that remembered Glennis ringing me after he was born because she was so proud, that felt genuinely sad. "You've always got somewhere to go," I said. "You just have to be willing to make a plan instead of waiting for someone else to carry you. I'd have helped you do that. I tried to help you do that. You didn't want to." He didn't say anything to that. He picked up his bags and left. The officer helped me figure out who to ring about the door lock he'd installed. A locksmith came out that afternoon, removed his lock, replaced it with a new one that matched the rest of the house. $80. I wrote it down. Kezia drove down that evening. She sat at my kitchen table and pulled up his TikTok account on her laptop. The live had been saved. It had, overnight, been clipped and shared and reposted on about 6 different platforms. There was a compilation. My nephew's claims about tenancy law juxtaposed with the officer explaining, calmly and clearly, that no, that's not how it works. Hundreds of thousands of views. The comments were predominantly variations of "Get Wrecked." He'd posted a follow-up video. Grainy. Shot from what looked like the car park of a McDonald's, still in his car. Talking about how he'd been illegally removed from his home and how his uncle had weaponized the police against family and how he was going to take legal action through every avenue available. Kezia paused it. "He's not going to do any of that. No. But he might try the Tenancy Tribunal just to cause trouble. Let him." She looked at me. "Are you all right?" I thought about that. The house was quiet in a way it hadn't been in 7 months. No gaming sounds through the wall at 2 in the morning. No one else's dishes. No food gone from the fridge without asking. Just the ordinary quiet of my house. The way it always was. The way it was supposed to be. "Yeah," I said. "I'm all right." He did file with the Tenancy Tribunal, as it turned out. 3 weeks later, I got notification of an application. He was claiming unlawful eviction, $1,400 in moving costs and emotional harm, and reinstatement of tenancy. The tribunal assessed it within 10 days and declined to schedule a hearing. Letter said there was no tenancy agreement, no rent paid, no basis for the application. He was a guest. The homeowner had lawfully asked him to leave. He posted about the letter on TikTok, naturally. The system is rigged. His viewer count had dropped significantly by then. The audience that had shown up for the drama had largely moved on, except for a core group who seemed to be watching for the same reason you watch a car that's already crashed, just to see where all the pieces end up. Glennis didn't ring me for 6 weeks. When she finally did, she didn't apologize exactly. But she said she knew he'd been difficult, and that she was glad he was staying with a friend now, and had apparently found some work at a warehouse. I said that was good. I meant it. I genuinely hope he sorts himself out. He's family. He's still the kid Glennis was so proud of, somewhere underneath all of it. But hope and housing are different things. What I didn't tell Glennis, because it seemed unnecessary, was that Shane's TikTok became something of a case study. Kezia sent me a video from a New Zealand legal commentary account. Just some bloke who explains tenancy law for a general audience that used Shane's live as an example of why people need to understand the difference between being a guest and being a tenant. It has over 300,000 views. The comments under that video are full of landlords and homeowners sharing their own stories, and a surprising number of people who'd been in Shane's position, who'd overstayed their welcome and convinced themselves that time plus entitlement equaled rights. It doesn't. That's the thing. Time doesn't create ownership. Comfort doesn't create entitlement. Staying somewhere long enough that it starts to feel like yours doesn't make it yours. There are legal pathways for establishing tenancy in this country, and they require agreements and consent, not just the slow confidence of someone who's stopped paying attention to how much they're taking. I know that sounds like a lecture. I'm 63. We lecture. It's one of the few remaining privileges. I had the smart lock installed on the front door a week after he left. Kezia picked it out. You can see who's at the door from your phone, and I can let people in remotely or lock up without being home. It's more technology than I usually bother with, but I find I like it. There's something satisfying about a lock you chose, on a door you own, in a house that is unambiguously yours. The lounge furniture is back where it's always been. The kitchen is organized, the way I like it. The fridge has exactly what I put in it. My son Hamish rang last month and asked if I was lonely, now that the house was just me again. I told him no. I told him there's a difference between being alone and being lonely, and that I'd spent the last 7 months living with someone and feeling more alone than I ever had by myself. He said that made sense. I renewed my lease. Well, there's no lease. It's my house, but I renewed my insurance, had the place revalued, started a small renovation on the bathroom I'd been putting off for 3 years. The kind of things you do when a place is yours again and you're ready to invest in it. Shane still posts occasionally. Less often than before. Fewer people watching. He seems to have pivoted toward gym content, which is probably a healthier outlet than claiming other people's houses. I don't hold a grudge. But I've learned something I should have known earlier, which is that kindness without limits isn't kindness. It's just an open door, and some people will walk through it and keep walking until they've claimed the whole house. Help people. Do it generously, but know what you're agreeing to, and be honest when the arrangement has run its course. Because the longer you wait, the more comfortable they get, and the more surprised they act when you finally say enough. And if they decide to announce it on TikTok, that's their business. The internet will sort it out. I've thought about this a lot since Shane left. Not with anger that passed quickly, but with the slower, quieter feeling you get when something that seemed complicated turns out to have been simple all along. What happened in my house wasn't really about tenancy law, or TikTok, or even Shane specifically. It was about what occurs when someone is never asked to be accountable. Shane didn't wake up one morning and decide to be a person who live streams himself claiming another man's house. He got there gradually. The way you get anywhere gradually, one small step at a time. Each one going unchallenged until he'd walked so far in the wrong direction that he genuinely couldn't see it anymore. I'm partly responsible for that. I let things slide because I didn't want the friction. Month 3 came and went. Month 4. I told myself I was being patient, being kind. But there's a version of kindness that's really just avoidance dressed up in generous clothing. Real kindness would have been an honest conversation in week 6, not a slow-burning standoff 7 months in. I know that now. The clearer your boundaries are from the start, the less damage there is when someone tests them. What I keep coming back to is the intelligence piece. Not book intelligence. Shane's reasonably sharp when he applies himself. I mean, the harder kind. The kind that asks, what are the actual consequences of my actions, and am I willing to own them? Shane had convinced himself that time equaled rights. That staying somewhere long enough, making it feel comfortable enough, gave him a claim on it. He'd built an entire internal logic around this, and then broadcast it to 9,000 people as though the audience would confirm it. When the police officer quietly dismantled that logic in about 4 sentences, you could see it on his face. Not defiance. Just the particular blankness of someone realizing their map was wrong the whole time. That's what I want people to take from this. Not don't let family move in. Family should be able to ask for help and receive it. But think carefully about what you're agreeing to, and when an arrangement has run its course, say so. Say it plainly, without cruelty. But say it. Because every week you don't, the other person builds more of their life around an assumption that was never meant to be permanent. You're not protecting them by staying quiet. You're just delaying the collision and making it worse when it comes. Shane's working now, from what Glennis tells me. Warehouse job, early starts, steady pay. I hope he sticks with it. I hope the whole experience, the embarrassment of it, the public nature of it, the officer explaining to 9,000 strangers that no, that's not how any of this works. I hope it lands somewhere useful in him eventually. Because the willingness to face consequences, to sit in the discomfort of having been wrong, and come out the other side with something learned, that's the making of a person. That's where the actual growth is. The house is quiet. I made myself a proper dinner last Saturday night. Sat at my own table, in my own kitchen, listened to the rain on the roof. 22 years I've lived here. Some things are earned and they're yours. And that's allowed to mean something.